The imperial council chamber fell silent as Empress Valena delivered her decree. Her daughter, Princess Mareth, would be wed to the human ambassador within the week. No discussion would be entertained. Mareth sat in her anti-gravity chair at the far end of the hall, her pale blue skin seeming even more translucent under the harsh light of judgment. The spinal injury from the shuttle crash 3 years prior had left her legs useless, and in the Kelvorian Empire, physical perfection was not merely preferred but expected. She had become an embarrassment to the throne. The human ambassador, a man named Thomas Webb, stood when his name was announced. He was unremarkable by Kelvorian standards. Average height, brown hair going gray at the temples, and those strange binocular eyes that humans possessed. He looked at Mareth with an expression she could not read, then bowed deeply to the Empress. "I accept this honor," Thomas said in flawless Kelvorian. Mareth wanted to laugh at the absurdity. An honor. They were discarding her like damaged cargo, shipping her off to a species most of the galaxy considered primitive. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They were newcomers, barely worth noticing, except for their peculiar stubbornness and their unfortunate tendency to survive things that should have killed them. The wedding ceremony was brief and efficient. Mareth wore the traditional silver robes, though they hung awkwardly on her seated form. Thomas wore what he called a suit, a formal human garment that looked uncomfortable. They spoke the binding words, and it was done. She belonged to him now, at least by Kelvorian law. The transport ship that would take them to the human colony world was small but functional. Thomas helped Mareth aboard, his hand steady as he guided her anti-gravity chair up the ramp. She noticed he did not flinch from touching her, did not show the barely concealed disgust she had grown accustomed to from her own people. "I know this is not what you wanted," Thomas said once they were alone in the ship's common area, "but I will try to make it bearable." "How generous," Mareth replied, her voice sharp with bitterness. Thomas nodded, accepting her anger without argument. "The journey will take 6 days. Your quarters are through that door. I will be in the cabin next to yours if you need anything." He left her alone. Mareth sat in the dim light of the common area, looking out at the stars as they shifted into the strange patterns of faster-than-light travel. She was leaving behind everything she had ever known, cast out because her body had failed to meet impossible standards. The first 2 days passed in near silence. Thomas prepared meals and brought them to her, asking nothing in return. He worked at a small terminal in the corner of the common area, sometimes reading, sometimes typing reports. He did not try to make conversation when she made it clear she wanted none. On the 3rd day, the ship's artificial gravity failed. Mareth felt the familiar lurch in her stomach as weightlessness took hold. Her anti-gravity chair began to drift, its systems not designed to function without a gravitational field to push against. She grabbed for a handhold and missed. Beginning to tumble slowly through the air, Thomas appeared in the doorway of his cabin within seconds. He launched himself across the room with the practiced ease of someone who had trained in zero gravity, catching Mareth before she could strike the wall. His arms wrapped around her, steadying her rotation. "I have you," he said. "The gravity generator has a fault. I can fix it, but it will take a few hours." "Put me down," Mareth said, though there was nowhere to put her down. Thomas guided them both to a wall grip. He positioned Mareth so she could hold herself in place, then moved to a control panel. His fingers flew over the interface, bringing up diagnostic screens. "The backup generator should engage," he muttered, "but the relay is stuck." He disappeared into the maintenance crawl space. Mareth floated, holding the grip, feeling helpless in a new and different way. In normal gravity, her chair gave her mobility and independence. Here she was as capable as anyone else, yet she felt more vulnerable than ever. Thomas emerged 20 minutes later, his suit streaked with grease. I need to reach the relay manually. It is in a tight space. I can fit, but barely. He vanished again. Marith heard the sounds of metal scraping, heard Thomas grunt with effort. Then there was a sharp crack and a cry of pain. The lights flickered. Gravity returned abruptly, and Marith dropped the half-meter to the floor, her useless legs crumpling beneath her. Thomas crawled out of the maintenance space, his left arm hanging at an odd angle. Blood seeped through his sleeve. He had broken his arm, possibly in more than one place. The relay is fixed, he said through gritted teeth. Gravity should hold now. Marith pulled herself upright using a chair. You are injured. I will manage. You cannot even use that arm. Where is the medical kit? Thomas pointed with his good arm. Marith retrieved her anti-gravity chair, which had clattered into a corner, and navigated to the medical locker. The supplies inside were basic but adequate. She had received medical training as all Kelvorian royalty did, though she had never expected to use it. Sit, she commanded. Thomas sat. Marith examined his arm, her fingers gentle but thorough. The break was clean, at least. She prepared a stabilization wrap, one of the standard items in any ship's medical kit. It would hold the bones in place and accelerate healing. Though Thomas would need proper medical attention once they reached their destination. This will hurt, she warned. I know. She worked quickly, aligning the brake and applying the wrap. Thomas made no sound, though she saw the muscles in his jaw tighten. When she finished, his arm was immobilized and the bleeding had stopped. Thank you, Thomas said. You injured yourself repairing the ship. It was necessary. I mean, for more than that. Thomas met her eyes. You could have left me to manage on my own. You chose to help. Marith looked away. Do not read too much into it. But something had shifted between them. Over the remaining days of the journey, they began to talk. Thomas told her about Earth, about the vast oceans and diverse climates. He described the human colony where they would live, a settlement on a world humans had named Haven. It is not as advanced as Kelvoria, Thomas admitted. We do not have anti-gravity technology as sophisticated as yours. But we are adaptable. So I have heard, Marith said. The galaxy thinks humans are like weeds. You grow anywhere, survive anything. Thomas laughed. We take that as a compliment. Marith found herself smiling despite herself. You would. Haven was smaller than she had expected, a collection of buildings clustered near a wide river. The architecture was functional rather than beautiful, but there was something appealing about its straightforward design. Thomas had sent word ahead, and a small group waited at the landing pad. Marith descended the ramp in her chair, expecting stares and whispers. Instead, the humans welcomed her with what seemed like genuine warmth. A woman named Dr. Patricia Holmes approached, introducing herself as the colony's chief medical officer. Ambassador Webb mentioned your injury, Dr. Holmes said. I would like to examine you, if you are willing. We have been developing new treatments. I have been told my condition is permanent, Marith replied. Perhaps. But would you object to an evaluation? Marith looked at Thomas, who nodded encouragingly. I will come with you, if you wish, he offered. The medical facility was small, but well equipped. Dr. Holmes ran a series of scans, her expression thoughtful as she reviewed the results. The damage to your spinal column is severe, she said, but not necessarily irreparable. We have been experimenting with neural regeneration techniques. They are still experimental, and I cannot promise success. Why would you even try? Marith asked. I am not human. Dr. Holmes looked surprised by the question. Because you are here, and you are injured, and we might be able to help. Is there another reason we would need? Over the following months, Marith underwent a series of treatments. The process was slow and often painful. Dr. Holmes and her team worked with Kelvorian medical databases, adapting human techniques to Kelvorian physiology. Thomas was there for every appointment, offering quiet support between treatments. Marith began to explore Haven. The colony was building a new district, and she found herself drawn to the construction. The lead engineer, a gruff woman named Margaret, put her to work reviewing structural designs. "You have an eye for this," Margaret said, looking over Marith's suggested modifications. "Ever think about engineering as a career?" "I was a princess," Marith said. "I was not supposed to have a career." "Well, you are not just a princess anymore. You are a colonist. We all work here." It was true. Haven had no servant class, no rigid hierarchies. Everyone contributed according to their abilities. Marith found the concept both strange and liberating. 6 months after her arrival, Marith felt something she had not felt in 3 years. A tingling in her left foot. Dr. Holmes ran immediate scans, her face breaking into a wide smile. "Neural pathways are regenerating," she said. "This is remarkable." The progress was incremental but steady. First, slight sensation returned. Then small movements. Then, one morning nearly a year after her arrival, Marith stood without assistance. Her legs trembled with the effort, and she could only manage a few seconds before exhaustion forced her to sit. But she had stood. Thomas found her crying in her quarters that evening. He sat beside her without speaking, simply present. "I never thought," Marith began then,